Are you looking for more out of your life? Do you need ideas on how to start new businesses and how to move forward in your own personal life? Well, guess what? You have come to the right radio show. At You Can Overcome Anything podcast show, you will learn and hear from many people from all walks of life who are sharing their challenges, their stories, the habits, and the mind shifts they had to overcome to become who they are today. On top, you will get a chance to connect and see how you can overcome anything by networking and learning about your next move through this radio show. I present to you our great speakers at You Can Overcome Anything podcast show with your host, Cesar Espino. Hey, welcome back. It is your friend Cesar Espino. You can find me at www.cesarrespino. And welcome to another episode of You Can Overcome Anything podcast show. Today I have a special guest. His name is Dave Panozzo. Hey, Dave, how are you?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely happy to have you here and looking forward to learning a lot from you and getting a lot of great ideas for our listeners.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
Awesome. Before we get going, let me give them a little bit of your background so they can get to know you.
Sure.
So Dave is a full-time professional real estate agent and a member of the National Arizona and Scottsdale Associations of Realtors. Dave is familiar with Scottsdale and surrounding areas of Phoenix. He brings value to the buying, selling experience because of his many years of purchasing auction properties and completing construction projects around the valley. Originally from Gary, Indiana, Dave joined the United States Army, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And lived in Germany for over 2 of his 3 years of service. After leaving the service in 1991, he and his wife lived in Columbus, Ohio, and Chicago, Illinois, before moving to Scottsdale in November of 1994. Dave started his sales career in automobile industry, where he was a sales manager for 13 years. He also owned a construction company and flipped over 40 homes. When he is not working, Dave enjoys spending time with his family, working out, hiking, and doing hot yoga. He's a proud father of 2 girls, Kearney, who is currently an officer in the United States Air Force, and Nicole, who will be enlisting in the U.S. Air Force later in the year. So they actually follow your footsteps from that perspective, huh?
Yeah. My wife was in the Air Force, and I was in the Army. So.
Oh, look at that! That's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool stuff.
Yeah. So, Dave, tell me about what were you originally born in, and what is your backstory as a child?
So I grew up in a town right outside Chicago, on the Indiana side, right outside beautiful Gary, Indiana. And if anyone knows Gary, Indiana, they're laughing right now because it's a rough part of town. But I grew up in the outskirts there, and so grew up in the suburbs. Dad worked. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, so it was kind of like one of those suburb type lifestyles. Played sports, did what typically any kid did back in the day. I mean, I'm kind of glad I grew up back then because I did play outside. I didn't wear a helmet on my bicycle and did stupid stuff as a kid would. And I'm kind of glad that, I experienced that because having children of my own and just seeing how kids are nowadays, I don't know, it's a different deal. You know what I mean? It's a different lifestyle. So I'm very, very thankful that I grew up during that generation. And then we moved to Columbus, Ohio. My dad got transferred, moved to Columbus, Ohio, and did high school and tried college. College didn't like me, so I decided to quit, dropped out, and joined the military. I joined the Army for 3 years, and I would do it all over again. That was a really great awakening experience, I think. I think more kids nowadays, if they're on the fence and they don't know what they want to do, serving your country is a really cool thing, and it's something that I'll take to my grave. And I really, really enjoyed that experience because I grew up from a child to an adult and learned what responsibility was, learned what it was to take orders from someone, all these people skills that a lot of younger kids don't experience until either later on in life or just never experience. And so that kind of gave me the groundwork for, years later to come, not knowing it, at the time.
Right. Yeah.
It was that was awesome. That was awesome. Like I said, I would do it all over again. And I met my wife. I was stationed in Germany, met my wife. One thing led to another, and we ended up getting married. She still had a year left in the service. And so we ended up in Great Falls, Montana. That's where we had our first daughter. And then after that, we decided that the military life is definitely not our deal. There was more that we wanted. And I think for me, it was, I'm not a in the box type of guy. I'm an outside the box. And so the military keeps you inside the box. And not that I was a rebel or disrespectful. I knew that I wanted more. And so we decided to get out, and we got out, moved to Columbus, Ohio for a couple of years. Our first sales job was selling pictures. Now this is going to outdate me to your audience. If there's any, what do you mean pictures?
What is that?
Don't you just take it on your cell phone?
Yeah.
So back then, what would happen is you'd walk in the grocery store, and I would say, "Hey, I'd like to give you one. It's a free 10 by 13 portrait of you and the family. You can have up to 13 people, and it's only $5. And then what they would do is sign up. They would come back 2 weeks later. The photographer would take the pictures. Then 2 weeks later, now take in mind, they would have to send the film off to get developed.
Yeah.
They would come back, and then my wife would be the one saying, "Oh, you want your 10 by 13 portrait? Well, what about this whole collection for, $250? You can, so it was an upsell type thing. And that's where we experienced our first true sales job. Then we moved to Chicago for a year. We were kind of like free-spirited, but yet we had a child, and we were just looking for something, and we weren't getting it in the Midwest. And I had always wanted to go out west. I thought for sure I would end up out in California. We ended up in Phoenix and raised our family, had a second daughter, and haven't looked back since. So Phoenix is home. I love it out here. It's
definitely beautiful out there. Again, except for the weather, it can be pretty hot, but other than that,
hot.
I think
it's hot. But 8 months out of the year, we're good to go.
No, that's awesome. So let me ask you, growing up, were there any major obstacles that you felt like you were hitting rock bottom, or maybe hitting this wall that you had to overcome? Or you would say that for the most part, it was pretty easy ride for you from that perspective?
I wouldn't say easy ride. I would say the typical teenager stupid stuff and whatnot. For me, I'm 52 years old, and I got sober when I was 38. Okay. So, after that first drink that I had as a freshman in high school, it was game on. Okay. And, I experimented, but then I got good at it. So it was a problem. And, looking back and connecting the dots, I can see where, I had a problem. I was one of those guys that just have the lucky gene, and I can look back and see, I was never really good at it, and I shouldn't have, done it. And, one thing led to another, and, smoking weed and trying other drugs and things like that. So, once again, fast forward, I got sober when I was 38. So it was a problem, and I corrected it and got sober at age 38.
Yeah. Let me ask you something, because I think a lot of people might go through something to that, or they don't see it, at the conscious level. And maybe the fact that you've already been sober for quite some time, there's a reflection on that. What do you think in your case, or that led you to maybe trying, the weed and some of the drugs and, drinking? What was it that kind of pulled you towards that? Was there anything specific that was kind of pulling you towards that, or you just wanted to try it?
just wanted to feel good.
Got it.
You know, it wasn't like, I didn't have any like childhood traumatic, crazy stuff like, abuse or anything like that. It's just, I had the party gene, that's really what it was. And I didn't know how to stop. And, once you start refueling that, you can't stop because you don't know any better. And that's really what it was, because listen, when I got sober, I heard all the stories of different scenarios, and, I'm looking around and hearing everyone's story. I'm like,
you're like, mine is not that bad.
I'm like, I didn't lose anything. I didn't kill anyone. You know what I mean? Like all these horrible, horrific things or terrible stories of childhood, where they had abusive parents and, the dad was an alcoholic, all that craziness. Like I didn't have any of that. So I was kind of like, am I a pussy? Like, can I just not handle my shit? I didn't know. But once again, it addiction gets everybody. It means no, you can cross the line. It doesn't matter if you're black or white or purple or yellow. Addiction is addiction. And so once again, I learned from all that. And
and addiction, and that kind of addiction can come in different levels too. Like, again, even if you're doing it just to party and have a good time, it can probably overtake a lot of good possibilities of opportunities, right? Were there any big lessons that you think you missed out or not lessons, sorry, opportunities that you missed out because of just having too much partying? And number one, and then the second to that is, were there any lessons that came out of that?
Well, I think number one, I never truly had like a real, mentor, so to speak. Mentoring and coaches nowadays, it's like, okay, scroll through your phone.
Part of it.
Everybody's a coach and a mentor. Okay. Yeah. And, you look back 20, 30 years ago to say you had a mentor or a coach, people would be like, what's wrong with you? It just wasn't a thing. It wasn't, I guess that apparent back in the day. And, my dad he was a dad, but, he wasn't like that powerful mentor figure that I needed. And so I think that was probably, looking back on things, that's where I went wrong. I didn't have that circle of influence that was positive. It was the other circle of influence that was, hey, let's go party. Okay.
Gotcha.
There's two roads there, you can go down the right road or go down the wrong road. And I feel that, I went down the wrong road, obviously. Yeah. And looking back, if I would have had that circle of friends of influence that were more in the positive direction, that would have definitely been a game changer for me. But then again, I was under the influence, so maybe it wouldn't have mattered. Maybe I did have some opportunities and stuff that came up, but I looked at them as, well, they don't really party or have fun. Like, why would I want to hang out around them? So,
yeah. Now, and I think a lot of times too, part of that is also perhaps feeling like that acceptance of being part of a community or of a group, or you find things that are in common, right? Whatever it is, whether it's good or bad, you find that in common, and then therefore you want to be part of that, and you end up being in that place, right? So I can see that also as being part of the things that we go through as we're growing up in life, right?
Oh, absolutely. Well, once again, I see these younger 20-some-year-olds that are just, they're really focused and dialed in and they have a good circle of influence and stuff. And I'm going, wow, that is so awesome for me to see, because I was a complete opposite. It was like, where's the party? Where are we going tonight? And these guys are like, well, how can I grow? How can I grow my business? It's night and day difference.
Right. No, yeah, definitely. Now talk about your sales, your real first sales job, selling the pictures. What were some of the bigger lessons that you took away from that, getting into that kind of a business?
I mean, that was probably the equivalent of like a door-to-door salesman. I mean, think about it. You're getting your grocery cart and there's this dude right in front of your face going, hey, I want to give you one. And hey, It enabled me to read body language. It enabled me to kind of learn how the mind works on people, because it's fascinating. Someone would walk into the grocery store, see me standing there, and immediately their eyes would go down so that they wouldn't have contact with me. And, to break that ice and to get someone to warm up to you within like literally 10, 15, 20 seconds, like you have to be on your A game. And to this very day, when I'm walking around the mall, what's really funny is, when you have those kiosks in the mall and they're selling whatever perfume and all, that tchotchke type stuff.
Yeah.
I'll lock in eye contact with those people, and it's a reverse effect. They don't know how to handle it, and they don't say anything.
Yeah, I can see that.
Where I was always looking for the eye contact, but they would never, give me, they'd look down and walk, like maybe if I don't look at them, I'll, disappear. But I notice when I look at someone dead eye, it scares them or something. I don't know. It's like a reverse psychological effect. And it's kind of funny. But yeah, that taught me a lot about human nature. And people don't like to be sold. And so you have to find that common ground, that little in between that you can relate to them to be able to talk to them. And that was probably my biggest takeaway from that.
How about rejection? Like, let's talk about that, right? I think within sales, and really, I mean, you see it more in sales, although you can see that in many different life lessons, right? And it can show up to you in different aspects. Even asking a guy or a girl out, whatever the case may be, you might be rejected. Yet in sales, you see that a lot, right? You can get the, no, I don't want to, buy your product, or I have no interest.
Right.
How do you deal with that? Because I think that's one of the things that many people haven't been able to master or even handle. They don't know how to handle that, right? So how do you do that?
I mean, hearing no, it's numbing to me now. Like, it doesn't bother me. At the beginning, I think in sales, because I, going from doing the picture thing to, then I got into the car business, which is also the last of the gladiators, hand to hand, sales, that basically there's something holding them back from saying yes. And it's our job to figure what that is and then to overcome it. And hearing no is just one step closer to a yes. And I noticed that sometimes when, we are mentoring agents in our industry and they get a no, these people get so deflated because someone says no, and it's almost like they want to give up. It's like, well, that's just the beginning. You have to engage with these people and get to a common place to where you can find out what is it what's holding them back? What's their needs? What's their want? I mean, it's all of it. And I think after a while, in doing this for such a long time, it comes very natural to me. Whereas if a brand new person in sales said, can you please write it all down? I probably wouldn't know where to start. You know what I mean? It's because I've been doing it for so long, it just comes second nature to me. Whereas at the beginning, when someone would say no, I would have to remember, okay, now I need to overcome this, or I need to overcome that. Where now it's just a natural progression in a conversation that just keeps rolling. And I think that's the biggest thing with people that are just getting into sales and starting that. You need to educate yourself. Okay. You might be slick and smooth talker, but if you don't know how to talk to someone at this day and age, because listen, most consumers out there already know what they want. They have the power of the cell phone. They can buy and shop anything they want. And when it's time for a salesperson to get involved, it's because they've reached their peak of information gathering, and now it's time for a salesperson to come into play. And I think that's where, it's not just a lay down. It's not just a gimme. You have to go the distance to make sure that person knows what they want and how to overcome it. So,
wow, I love that. Actually, I never saw that from that perspective. And you're right. By the time you get that person, they've already gathered all the information or as much available data. And now it's just a matter of you doing and finalizing that transaction per se, or however you want to put it, but differentiating yourself and being able to be likable so that they can actually do the business with you, right?
Right.
So,
Well, for us in real estate right now, most consumers that are, let's say, buying, they're already like 40 to 50% of the way there, okay, to the end result. The only reason why they need us is because we're kind of like the middle, we're the middleman. And so if someone's already mentally 40 to 50% down the way, okay, in the sales process, and you go back to the beginning, they're going to be like, who's this Jamoke? Like he doesn't get me. So you almost have to pick up right where they've left off to where they're kind of at a standstill and then move the sale forward. And that's one thing that I see, if someone knows what they want, they know what they want. It's just now a matter of how does that look? And that's where you have to come in and make sure you do the right steps to get them to the finish line.
Got it. No, that makes sense. And so let me ask you this. Going from these selling the pictures to becoming a car salesman, what enticed you to moving to real estate? What was the because you were in the car sales for like, 13 years, give and take?
Yeah.
So what happened? I mean, I know you talked about, you want to definitely expand and, you're not just kind of staying in one place, but what was the driving force for you to kind of change careers in that aspect?
Well, while I was still in the car industry, my wife got her license around the year 2002. We started flipping a couple homes here and there, and this was right before the market crashed in 05, 08. I liked the allure of real estate, but I didn't want to have a license. And my wife was always like, well, you'd be great at it. I'm like, no, I'm fine. So, fast forward, I flipped a bunch of homes, had some success with that. She was my built-in real estate agent.
Yeah.
And then it got to a point to where I had some different businesses and things that I went through, failed and learned and failed and learned. And then I'm like, you know what? I think I'm going to get my real estate license. And she's like, oh, that's a great idea, honey.
Yeah.
So a lot of everything I've been through, through my life led me up to that point, and I can look back now and see, oh yeah, check the box there, check the box here. It led me to this point. And so, the old saying of, there's no such thing as overnight success, it's about 15 to 20 years. Well, okay, I get that now. Okay. I understand that concept because once again, I had to go through the things I went through to get to this point to understand what I have and how powerful it is. And knowing the things that I've gone through in life has made me that much better of a salesperson to be able to handle one of the largest financial investments that an individual will make.
Yeah, no. And you said something that's critical. I think people need to take note of that. And you're right. There's no overnight success, and though if somebody's telling you there is, you got to run away from those people because it's going to take that grit. It's going to take that tenacity. It's going to take that persistence, doing it, in and out, right, all the time.
Right.
And so, if somebody's telling you, I can make you $1 million tomorrow or whatever, you gotta evaluate that, right, for sure. Now, with that though, there's a lot of failures or a lot of down moments, maybe not necessarily failures, down moments. What is your definition of failure or hitting rock bottom and kind of getting back up again? Like what's your definition of that?
Well, my biggest failure was, getting to the point of where I was literally on my knees and needing to get sober. Okay. That was my biggest fail. Okay. At age 38, after that, after being sober and getting sober, I probably had some of the worst shit happen to me after getting sober than I ever did during my partying days. Everything from lawsuits to foreclosure to business failures to my wife and I almost got divorced. Just enough stuff that would probably cripple any other human being. Okay. But after each failure, I noticed that my gap in getting back on my feet was shorter and shorter and shorter. So even though some of these most recent fails were kind of like little blips on the radar, if those fails were put at the beginning, they would have been like, devastating, like, oh my God. But now it's like a little quick fail. You're like, oh shit. Okay. I scraped my knee. I learned from it. I'll never do that again. Okay. Let's keep going. Whereas the first major fails in my life, it was I'm going to suck my thumb and feel sorry for myself, and I'm a victim, and it's everyone else's fault and not my own, is kind of how I took that. So, that's one thing that I've learned, is that you have to bounce back as quickly as possible from a failure. Okay. As long as you didn't lose any legs or arms or got sick or, someone went to jail or got killed or whatever. Okay. That's massive. Okay. We're talking business. What's the worst case? You lose some money, you fail. I mean, you can make more money. I mean, there's all these things that in hindsight, it's not that big of a deal. We're the ones who make it a big deal. Okay. We're the ones that sulk in our own shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Feel sorry for me. I lost money. Okay. Well, get back on the horse and ride. That's what I find. And yeah, it's a lot easier said than done. But once again, I'm still standing on my own 2 feet. I've learned from it. So now what? I'm going to move forward. And I think once again, that's where a lot of these failures maybe could have gotten avoided or softened if I would have had the right set of mentors or friends and things of that nature that maybe would have steered me away from some of this stuff.
Yeah, no, and you know what? That's actually pretty awesome. I often see people focusing too much on the materialistic aspect of life, where again, if I lose, if my car is gonna get repossessed, what's gonna happen to me? And then you kind of make this a bigger deal than what it is. And I like how you put it. I mean, at the end of the day, all of that you can get back. You can get all of that stuff back, as long as you're still breathing, can walk and talk and whatever, all these different things, right? You can do that. You can find a way to get those things back into your life again, even if it takes you time, even if it takes you a year or two. You might lose something. I myself, through the whole housing crash and things like that, that's when I got into real estate myself too. And I had multiple houses. I didn't have a mentor. I was doing things on my own. I didn't have anybody. And I learned the hard way by losing all of that, foreclosing my properties, short selling on some of the properties, having a 10-year bad credit. And I look at that and I'm like, yeah, that was bad. Yet it's a lesson that I learned from that is like, now I know how not to do it. Now I know what I need to do, right? And so you bounce back again, which is pretty awesome.
Right. I mean, once again, family, yourself, everything's still intact, okay? Yeah. You just got your ego bruised. So suck it up, buttercup. You know what I mean? You got to get back out there. And I think that is the biggest thing. When someone fails or they have something that goes the wrong way or whatever, they sulk in that. And I feel that's bad. Because listen, I sulked in it. Trust me. Yeah. My wife and I we sulked in it. We thought it was the end of the world. And, you look back on that and you're like, well, that was pretty stupid. That was like, I just wasted a lot of time, sulking.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, definitely. Let me ask you, what, if you were to give me like 3 to 5 lessons, your biggest lessons in life, up to date, what are some of those life lessons that you've gone through?
3 to 5 lessons. I think first is being comfortable with who you are. Okay. You are a unique individual. I will never be like you, and you will never be like me. We might have some characteristics and stuff that we share, but at the end of the day, you really have to be secure with who you are. And I think as being, younger, you're always trying to be with the cool kids or act like the cool kids. And, I grew up with no social media, so I can't imagine, being a teenager and flipping through and being like, oh, I want to be like him. And I want, you know what I mean? Because it's a mirage as far as what you see, with social media. And I think for me, I just got to a point where I'm like, you know what? If you're either going to love me or you're going to hate me, I'm okay with that. I don't need to be everyone's friend, and I'm okay. And I think that right there is probably the most refreshing piece of it. Okay. Mm. Second would be definitely getting a mentor. Okay. It's okay to have a couple mentors if you want. I mean, it depends. You could have a mentor for your marriage. You could have a mentor for your physical training, working out. You could have a mentor for business. I mean, it's okay to have an alliance of strong people that can help guide you through things that maybe they've already been through it. Third would be, making sure your family and your marriage is super strong, because once again, nothing's easy. Okay. I've been married almost 30 years. And it's not like, it's not like a honeymoon. Okay. I mean, we went through some shit. We've been through some great stuff, some worse stuff. And, that's an experience all by itself in making sure how to communicate and how to share feelings and how to, tackle certain things. And if you don't have the tools for that, then how are you going to make it through in life? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, those would probably be the top three things. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. There's something that you said here that I really like. You said that never give up and stop listening to that BS in your mind while you cannot do something. Can you elaborate more on that?
I mean, you can lie to yourself and believe it. Mm. Yeah. You can buy into your own bullshit. Okay. Yeah. I mean, seriously, like, if you're like, a bad situation and, you're trying to make some money and you're sitting on the couch going, man, it's going to happen. I just, I'm deserving, and you're sitting on the couch playing video games and you're not doing anything. Like, you can get yourself in a bad funk. Okay. You can really, really get yourself, jacked up in the head to a point to where you're almost frozen, but you're believing your own BS. Okay. And I think that's where you have to really be careful and not spin up some fantasy land in your head of why you are deserving or why you're a victim. I think you need to roll up your sleeves, have a plan, because if you don't have a plan in writing, then it's all up here. And if it's all up here, it's going to get misconstrued. It's going to get all screwed up. Okay. And then you start lying to yourself of why you're not. The reason why people don't put things on paper is because when you put the pen to paper and you start writing out your plan, you're scared on whether or not you're going to be able to follow that plan and fail. So you start to fall back on the failure thing. Well, I'm scared to fail. Well, if I commit to that, then what's going to happen? It's like, I want to make $1 million this year. Well, maybe I should back it down a little bit. What if I don't hit that? Well, maybe I'll back it down a little more. Okay, well, I'm going to make $200,000 this year. Well, why are you going to play it safe? And once again, it's because people are scared to fail. And I think you really, really need to overcome that piece of it.
Yeah, no, definitely. If you were to give any advice to the younger generation, right, of things that they can do, maybe they're trying to get into entrepreneurship, what would be your best advice to them to follow that journey? And especially, a lot of times, even now, people say, well, I don't have the means, I don't have the money, I don't have the resources to kind of get on that journey. What would be your advice?
Well, I think number one, you have to be the best, okay, at what you do. If you have to be the best in your personal life, you have to be the best in your relationship life, you have to be the best across the board. And what I mean by that is this. If you're a janitor and you're just kind of moping around and you're just kind of like doing your thing and you're like being kind of half-ass, but you have this big, huge vision of owning your own whatever, okay? Why wouldn't you be the best on that job? Because when you become an entrepreneur or a business owner or whatever it may be, you have to be on 110% all the time. So my thing is, if you have a job, be the fucking best. Why are you going to half step? Okay. Because once you're out here in this real world and there's no safety net and there's no hourly, there's no salary, there's no nothing, and it's just you, that's where you're going to have an awakening. And that's where you're going to end up failing. You know, if you want to be the best, then what does it take to make your bed in the morning? To make your bed perfect, to make sure your house or your apartment is perfect, clean. Why would you have a stack of bowls and dishes in your sink, okay, and think you're going to be awesome as a business owner? Like, there's little things that you can do to make yourself the best and be the best at all of it. You know, if you're out of shape and you're eating pizza and cheeseburgers and all that stuff, and you want to be in great physical shape, well, that's not helping you, right? You would want to eat clean and, you know, eat balanced food and work out and run and go to bed early, wake up. So why would you then be able to be an awesome entrepreneur if you can't do these little things that are free? Okay. It doesn't cost anything to make your bed in the morning. You know what I mean? Because we have a saying, you know, messy bed, messy head. So guess what? Our bed is made. Okay. That cost you nothing. And some people are like, well, who cares? Well, you're going to get back in it later. Well, that's just one task. If you can be really good at one or two or three little tasks, okay, then that's going to give you the grounding and the foundation for doing bigger and better things later on. And so I look at it like this. One, if you're working a job, you better kick ass at it, okay, and go beyond the call of duty and have ownership mentality. And then also, too, in your personal life, go beyond the top. Make sure you never leave a dish in the sink. Make sure the place is vacuumed. Make sure the bathroom is clean. These little things, they don't cost you anything. And those are your little tests that if you can be consistent and do that all the time, then maybe you are deserving to be an entrepreneur, or maybe you are, you know, ready for that next step. Because if you can't do the little things, you're not going to be able to do the big things.
Yeah, I love the two things to that. I heard this: how you do one thing is how you do everything, right?
Sure.
And so I can see that, and kind of like going back to what you mentioned, I think I heard this with Jim Rohn. He says, you know, if you're gonna make a phone call, don't let it be just a regular phone call. Let that be your best phone call. If you're gonna, you know, write a blog, don't let that be your, you know, mediocre blog. That is your best blog. In other words, do everything the best you can. And at the end of the day, it's for you, right? It's not really for anybody else. It's for you. Even if you're working a 9-to-5 job or whatever, yeah, they're paying your paycheck and all that stuff. That action, that habit, how you go about doing that is for you to help your journey, right? So
100%.
So is there anything specifically that you do on a day-to-day basis to kind of keep you, motivated, keep you in the right positive mindset?
Well, when we get up in the morning, yes, we do make our bed. Okay, that's first.
Yeah.
Second is we are not allowed to look at our cell phones except for the alarm goes off. You hit, dismiss. You're not allowed to look at your cell phone for the first hour of being awake in the morning. Okay. Because there's nothing in this thing that's going to get you motivated. Okay.
Yeah.
So both my wife and I, we've had this ritual now for, it's probably going on maybe 6 years, maybe 7. And this has been a game changer. So what I like to do is I like to read affirmations in the morning. I have over the years kind of like tweaked these to be very specific to my current situation. I read affirmations. I have maybe your viewers out there might know the 5-minute journal. Okay. That's a really powerful little tool. It's a good starter kit type journal for people that I'm not going to journal. Like the dudes are always like, well, I'm not going to, sitting there with a fluffy little feather pen and a pink little journal. No. It gets your intention set for the day. Like, what are you grateful for? What would make today great? And who are you and what are you about? And then I have another journal that I just like to kind of like freestyle on maybe a way I feel or what I'm going through, or maybe something exciting or maybe something shitty that happened.
Right.
And then depending upon where my mind is at, because sometimes I get ramped up at that point, I'll pick up a book and maybe read a paragraph or two, or maybe a couple pages, or sometimes I'll read a sentence and I don't even remember what I read. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be one of those days where I'm like, I'm not going to read today. So, that's the cornerstone of our morning ritual and once again, I am not perfect by any means. I probably hit that at least 5 to 7, I'd say 5 out of 7 days. Mm-hmm. We're on point with doing that. And that has been an extreme game changer for us, for the way we conduct ourselves throughout the day. Because once again, it's kind of like that old story of, you get out of bed, you stub your toe on the frame of the bed, and you're like, oh shit, man, it's going to be one of those days. Yeah. And guess what? It becomes one of those days where just crap after crap just keeps hitting you, and you're like, oh my God, I'm a victim, and I feel sorry for myself, blah, blah, blah. Well, when you start off your day with positive affirmations and what you're grateful for, and reading something positive from like a kick-ass book, man, that's the juice right there. And then when you're ready to hop on your cell phone and start looking at emails and text messages, then your mind is set and you're like, I'm good. Okay. Not a big deal. Mm-hmm. So that's how I like to do it.
Yeah. At which point did you discover that this was something that was critical for you to create, creating that ritual and putting that into your, as much as you can on your day-to-day life? Because that, I'm sure, if people are not doing that, I think it's important for them to create something, right? Some sort of ritual or habit. And so I guess the question is, how critical is it for you to actually, if you don't have one, to actually create one?
To create
To create a habit or create a ritual, something, whatever that might be.
I mean, you just have to do it, and once again, don't listen to the BS that's in your head. Okay. I mean, once again, if you can't get up and make your bed, you're in trouble. Okay. So, you got to start small. You can't, if I said, hey man, let's go run a marathon on Sunday. Okay, well, you and I would probably end up coughing up blood, okay? Because I'm not a runner. I don't like to run. It's not my deal. But if you and I went through a training phase and we started working our way up, okay, then we might be able to handle a 26-mile run, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing here. You're not going to do it all at one time. You're going to phase this thing in. Maybe you're going to start getting consistent, waking up at 6 a.m. no matter what. Okay. And then you start to phase in, okay, well, I'm making my bed as soon as I get up. And then maybe another week it's, I'm going to try to read, a couple paragraphs out of a great book. You're going to level yourself up over the course of a month or two. Okay. And before you know it, now you have about 3 or 4 things that you're doing on a consistent basis every single morning. And now you're starting to see, you're going to start to see the side effects, which is all positive. Okay. Mm-hmm. And now you're hooked, and now you've created yourself a morning ritual. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So Dave, I have a couple of more questions for you. I know your time is valuable, so I want to make sure that I respect that. Number one, what would be one thing you can tell our listeners and viewers that they can do now if they wanted to overcome something in their life?
Oh, that's a loaded one there. Depends on what they're trying to overcome.
Right. Yeah.
Well, number one, I think, pen to paper. Okay. What is it that you're up against? Okay. And as simple as it sounds, it's the old, okay, what's the situation? What are the pros? What are the cons? Okay. That's always a good one to start. Like if you're by yourself and you have no contact with anyone else and you have to figure this out on your own with no help, That's one of those where you're like pros and cons list. Okay. Then you start to mull that over and say, okay, I kind of see where I'm going with that. If I do succeed, what does that look like? If I fail, what does that look like? Okay. Is it going to cost me money? Is it going to cost me time? Is it going to gain me time? Is it going to gain me money? Also, too, bouncing it off someone that is in your inner circle, okay? Someone that is not an equal, or someone that is not below you, someone that is an achiever that's above you, okay? It's very crucial. Never ask someone for advice that's more messed up than you, okay?
Yeah.
That's rule number one. Rule number two, bounce it off someone that's been there and done that, because these are the guys and gals that they know pretty much what you could be up against, and they'll say, well, why would you do that? Why don't you do this? Oh, shit, that just saved me like 3 steps, in the process. And I think that's the biggest thing, is do a little bit of a self-evaluation, okay? And then bounce it off someone. And don't be mad at the advice that you get, because you've never done it, they have, so take their advice.
Yeah.
Don't be hard-headed.
I love that. Actually, that's actually pretty awesome, being able to just reflect and evaluate. And a lot of times we forget to do that. Even in a moment of uncertainty or a moment of fear, we don't take the time to really look at the pros and cons and say, what is going to be the best outcome? What direction can I take? I actually really enjoy that.
I mean, it's super old school. Pros and cons list. Oh shit, that's really simple. Well, think about it. Like, I want to buy a new car. Okay, great. New car, 0 miles, won't need any work. Looks cool. It's something I've always wanted. But then the cons, okay, it's going to cost me $700 a month. The insurance is going to be higher. What if I don't have enough money to make my payment? You know what I mean? You start going through all this, and before you know it, the answer starts to come out, and it starts to just permeate, and you're like, oh, okay, I see how I'm going to do this. So
that definitely makes sense. So if people wanted to connect with you, where can they find you?
I'm pretty much on most of the social platforms. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram. You can Google the Panozzo team. You'll see us pop up all over the place. I do have a YouTube channel that, my YouTube channel isn't high speed, low drag. It's just my little spot that I like to park all my videos and things that I do. And that would be, or you can just reach out direct to me if you want to chat.
Yeah, awesome. And then is there any other things that you want to tell our listeners or viewers before I let you go?
Once again, be true to yourself. Don't listen to the little lies in your head. Get yourself a awesome sphere of influence, okay, from people that are, higher up the food chain, that have had more life experiences, and lean on those guys and gals. They are more than willing to share their experiences with you, more than you know, okay? So take advantage of that.
That's awesome. Dave, thank you so much for all of your great advice and just, spending some time with us today at the podcast.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate you having me on today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And for the rest of you guys, please make sure you check us out on Apple Podcasts and all platforms where you can find your favorite podcast. Please make sure you come to this episode, comment, leave your comments. We definitely want to hear back from you, and stay tuned for the next podcast episodes. Talk to you later. Bye.
Hi, I'm Cesar Espino, real estate investor, business coach, and consultant, and author of the book, You Can Overcome Anything, Even When the World Says No. My number is 424-501-6046. In my book, I talk about making the necessary changes to shift your mind for prosperity and certainty. Pick up your copy at Amazon. I also love helping families with their real estate and can purchase your house fast and all cash. Follow me on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. My number is 424-501-6046.
Thank you for having me today. I am so glad you tuned in to this podcast. You can find me at Spreaker.com, where you can like and subscribe. And to learn more about myself and my services, you can find me at www.cesarrespino.com, or you can also find me at Facebook under Cesar R. Espino. Once again, Thanks for joining me. I am looking forward to having you at the next episode, and know that you truly can overcome anything.